Yeah. Thank you.
I've got kind of two-pronged question, one about prayer and then another about faith that Mary kind of started bringing up before. But with the prayer thing, like I have times like when I pray, it's like I feel, it's like a peace, like a quiet, it's like it's feeling, and then when I start, like an emotion starts coming up, I just get flooded with all these thoughts like, you're just having a tantrum, man.
Yeah, but you don't want to hear what I'm going to say next.
Okay.
You're not praying yet.
Okay.
Yeah. What you're wanting is a calm feeling of your emotions. Right? You want, basically you're asking God to calm you down. You want God to come to a rescue of your emotions. You understand?
Yep.
So this is what you call your prayer, and unfortunately God doesn't hear it, because when I say unfortunately, it's probably fortunately, God doesn't hear it, because for God to answer your prayer, he would have to work against your desire, the very thing that he created you to be. So most of your prayer is, how can I avoid how bad I feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's not a prayer. Well, it's a prayer for one thing, isn't it? Avoiding how bad you feel, but it's not going to enter God, that prayer. You know, so when you say prayer, I'm assuming it's a prayer to God that you want to make. And any feeling like that directed to God is really an avoidance of prayer. You understand?
Yeah.
A prayer is, you have to be in an emotional state connected to your feelings that you want a relationship with God for no other purpose than having the relationship with God. Not for the purpose of rescuing you from your feelings or rescuing you from your bad thoughts or rescuing you from your sin, but primarily because you want the relationship with God and you want to come face to face with your sin and feel it.
Yep.
Right? That's a prayer.
Yeah, so it's like...
So that's why your prayers don't get answered.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, you just got to have the feelings and just feel how bad, because it's true, like when I'm not in my arrogant feelings, I just do feel really bad all the time.
I'll just stop you again. No? You're never not in your arrogant feelings.
Okay.
Yeah. And while the arrogance exists, like this is a fundamental thing about the soul. Like, many of you don't realise, sometimes you say, oh, today I was angry. No, you're always angry. While the anger is in you, you're always angry. You just deny it most of the time. Right? And you think you got control of it most of the time. And many of you say, oh, I was sad today. No, you're always sad. Like every time I see you, you're always sad. You understand?
Yeah.
And the reason why you're sad is because you haven't let it go yet. That's why you haven't surrendered to it yet. So you're sad. And of course we could list many other emotions that you always are. So when you say, there's times when I'm arrogant, no, you're always arrogant. Right? And you will always be arrogant until you surrender to the reason why you are.
Right.
See, what does arrogance give you?
Feeling that I'm good, a feeling that I understand things,
yeah.
A feeling of...
So it's really, I don't have to deal with anything, so I'm so good already.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
That's the feeling.
Yeah. So arrogance is an emotion that you'd rather have than have to deal with your other feelings. Right? So you'd rather be arrogant than have to deal with some things.
Yeah.
So, but you're always like that, because you always want to not deal with things.
Right, yeah.
Like every single thing I've ever talked to you about, you never wanted to deal with it. Ever. Like, ever since I met you. You've never wanted to deal with it. Because you've always believed you either don't have it, or if you do have it, it's not as bad as what I'm saying it is. Or if you do have it, it's actually a good thing. You know, like...
Yeah.
And you don't see it as from God, you know, how God sees it. So, yeah, even the concept, like, even being arrogant is a choice to avoid surrender to deeper emotion. And it's a way you've been taught that you can get it under control.
Right.
You see, the average person who's arrogant can go, I'm already good, I don't need to see anything that's bad about me because I'm already good. What's this person talking about? Like Mary's criticising you about something. What? How can she criticise me? Can't she see how good I am? Man, you just think I'm really bad, don't you? There's something wrong with you. You think I'm bad. You don't know. You don't know me very well at all, do you? Can you see the arrogance? This is what it helps me do.
Yep.
It helps me avoid completely any truth that she might be sharing, doesn't it? Yeah. And so fundamentally, the arrogance is just a layer created by myself to avoid surrender.
Yeah, to avoid the actual emotion. Yeah, so that's just one of the other list of emotions that needs to be worked through to then have genuine prayers and to...
Well, let's stop this whole worked through. Can you work through emotions?
You just have them.
You either have them or you don't have them.
Yeah.
So arrogance, what are you going to have to do with arrogance?
Feel the feelings of the arrogance.
Yeah, you're going to have them.
Like, I am, like... Yeah.
I think I'm pretty top shit, right? Yeah.
Feel yourself in
Feel yourself in this place and feel it. And then you can, if you feel it properly, you will automatically begin feeling what's under it.
Oh.
Automatically. Remember I said that about sadness and anger. If you feel the layer of anger that's there and you're actually feeling it, you will automatically, within a very short period of time, feel why and what does my anger give me? Power over what emotion? You'll feel these things. You don't have to work through it.
Yeah.
You will feel. You will go through it. You will not see. The whole concept of working through it is about controlling going through it.
Right.
So,
you understand? So while I'm working through it and I'm putting effort into my mind to deal with it all, I am working through it so that I control myself from actually like blah. It's like, you know when you need to vomit. I don't know.
I need to do a lot of vomiting, you're saying.
When you need to vomit, you get to this point, don't you? It's like, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Very unpleasant.
It's going to go everywhere.
It's going to go everywhere, and it's happening right now. You understand? That's what we don't want to do with our emotion.
Yep.
Yeah. But you could say, you know, at the point of vomiting, your body is surrendering for what it needs to do to clear away the problem, isn't it? At that point, it's sort of... So before then, you're in a state where you're going, you know, I can control this, I can keep it down. You know, whatever you're
tried it all, man.
yeah. But if you like you got food poisoning or something, the body wants it out of you, right? And so the body's going to go.
It's the design of the body.
It's the design.
One way or another.
One way or another, it's coming out.
Yeah.
Right, back end, front end, whatever.
Yeah.
It's coming out, and you haven't got any control over it anymore. It's coming. It's coming, and all you can do is help it.
Yeah.
When I say help it, you get to the point where you surrender and let it happen. You understand?
Yes.
Physically,
Yes.
you surrender and let it happen. Well, that's what we need to do with our emotion.
Okay.
So with our emotion, we need to surrender to arrogance. You have to physically feel it there.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Be in it, feel it there. Notice it. You'll notice it. If you be in it, you'll notice it. If you allow yourself to be in it, see. It's the denial that creates the disallowance for being. So when I'm in denial of the experience, I'm now not. So you're going around thinking you're a nice, kind fella when you're arrogant, right? So that's me.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
When you're arrogant, you're not a nice, kind fella, right? But you believe you are because the arrogance, the layer is above the arrogance, going, I don't need to do with anything. I'm so lovely. You understand?
Yes.
And this is it's because there's all this arrogance underneath, but I'm not being it. I'm not just letting it, surrendering to it, like vomiting it, out, having the experience. Instead, what I'm doing is just like trying to control it and even stay in denial of even that, which helps me to stay in denial of the next thing.
Yeah.
So with our emotions, a lot of times there's one layer of denial. So I deny something, and I'm denying another thing underneath that,
and
I'm denying another thing underneath that, and I use the one above to deny the one below.
That's why it gets so frustrating, I think, sometimes, though, right? Or is that another layer of it there?
Frustration is anger.
Yeah.
Frustration is wanting control. Frustration is I don't want to surrender. So frustration is really like. What I see a lot of people saying, they're working on it and they feel very frustrated. Well, that's because you want control of something. You want to not surrender to something. That's why you're frustrated.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So many times I get frustrated, but I know that I need to surrender.
Right, yeah. So if you have that desire,
Yep.
is that a prayer?
Well, it depends. If you're asking God to help you with that, then it might be a prayer, right?
Right.
If it's motivated.
If
by
it's
it.
actually a feeling, I want to go there.
Yeah, you want to go there rather than avoid going there.
Yeah.
Most of your prayers at the moment is, I want to avoid going there. Can you help me do that?
Yep.
Can you rescue me from doing that? Is really what you feel. And God can't do that because they're your feelings and you've got to learn to have them. In fact, one of the primary reasons why God can't help you with it is because it's an aspect of love of yourself. If he helped you avoid your emotion, he would help you not love yourself. Do you understand, Nikki?
Kind of.
If God helps you avoid a feeling you have, then he's helping you to not love yourself. He designed you to love yourself. That's when everything in your body and everything in your life will work perfectly if you love yourself, right? In God's definition of loving yourself. And part of that is being in a surrender state to all of your emotions, right? Right. So if I'm asking God to help me to control my emotions, to calm myself down or whatever, if that's why I'm praying to God, then I'm asking God to stop me from loving myself.
Yeah.
Which God can't do.
Yeah.
It would be working against his desire.
Because also I wouldn't be able to receive truth in that place either, right? So
you can't receive truth, you can't receive love, you can't have
Yeah.
joy, you can't have a good emotional experience after the bad one.
an actual good one.
An actual
Yeah.
good one, because
Yeah.
you're denying, you're not surrendering. And also, it's funny because you're also working against your own, you're using your will to work against yourself. So you're actually not got a real harmonious with God's will for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with it.
Yeah, it's just a massive struggle. That's just the fact of it. It is a struggle.
Well,
Okay.
there's a lot of...
You like to say these
Yes,
things.
yeah.
Because it helps you avoid. Like if something's hard, what's the general feeling? You're not going to do it.
Or
That's what
simply-
I noticed about your life. If something's hard, you get somebody else to do it. You know, I mean, just recently you had this experience with Paul, was it 6 months ago when you sent me that email or whatever? There was something hard in your life and you wanted Paul to handle it. That's a general thing that happens whenever something hard comes up, you want somebody else to handle it. You don't want to handle it yourself. God's going, you're the supreme creation of mine. You can handle everything that happens to you. In fact, a lot of things that happen to you, you created anyway, so you should handle them.
I feel like, Nikki, there's some things in what you're saying to Jesus there that you're not understanding yet about this process that God has you in. You're still seeking, because you've got the arrogance that you haven't even let yourself be emotionally aware of yet. You're still seeking good feelings all the time. You're trying to get through the bad feelings to have the good feelings.
Yep.
Whereas God really wants you to work through the bad feelings without shame or self-judgment, but to understand sin so that it's not repeated in your life. So these what we call the hard emotions or the troubling emotions or the difficult emotions, or you're the suffering and all this sort of dramatic language that you put around it, is really indicating that you are not in a process with God which is bringing you towards love. And you're not humbly in that yet.
Yeah.
You're in it, but you're not humbly in it.
Yeah,
Do you know
it's
what
like I'm battling against it.
Not only that, you've become an actor.
Yeah.
An actor, what does an actor do?
To play out something,
They play out
To
something.
play out a story or a
Yeah,
role.
but it's
or-
not real, is it, for the actor?
No.
They're just acting. And that's what you're doing with God. You're trying to act instead of be.
Instead of just be.
Yeah. Be whatever it is you are, and then talk to God about that.
That's right. And I think another thing that everyone needs to understand, that real prayer does not place any condition on God. There is no condition placed in it. That, it's an openness to God's love and truth. It's a seeking of those things beyond what I currently feel and see and understand.
And also beyond what I'm going to have to deal with.
Yeah, it's not like, I want a bit but not that, and or could you make me feel good in this process? No, that's not sincere prayer. So earlier you said I have to work through the arrogance before I can pray sincerely. no, in my experience, sincere prayer is helping me work through certain things. They're not independent of each other. One doesn't preclude the other. And in fact, if you approach it that way, that you're going to deal with the arrogance on your own and then pray sincerely, I don't
pretty hard.
That's going to work. Not just because you're not going to have God's truth about the matter, but even the desire to work through it on your own without seeking God's counsel is a perpetuation of the arrogance.
Yeah, it's like...
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the self-reliance. It's like the arrogance is part of self-reliance.
We say, I understand this arrogance issue and I'm going to work through it.
Yeah.
In my experience, the best thing is to go, God, I think I've got a problem here. Can you illuminate it for me? Then you see a whole heap more that you were already thinking that bit wasn't a problem of the arrogance. That was just normal Nikki. And God can show you all of that. And then you know also where you're aiming for.
Right.
The thing when you want to be what you are, so let's say you want to actually feel that you're arrogant.
Yeah.
Then, of course, when it comes to do you want to deal with it, you can actually ask God to help you with it, and it can be exposed, can't it? But if you don't want to feel it, then you're already saying to God, I don't want to feel that I am arrogant. I don't want to feel that I've got this problem. So God's going to go, well...
No worries.
Well, no worries. He's going, well, that's going to be a lot of sin, Nikki, but it's your call. Yeah. It's your will, it's your soul, it's your call. He doesn't go, no worries, keep on. He's going, I wish you would change that, Nikki, but the reality is, while you have that attitude, you're not going to change it.
Right.
So until you can feel your arrogance, how can you then pray about it? You see, a lot of times people go to me and they say, like, Jesus, what emotion do you think I need to work on next? You know, what feelings do I need to work on next? Which is very interesting in itself when you talk about the whole idea of surrender. Because reality is when you're in a state of surrender, you work on everyone next. You know what I mean? As many as you can. As many as what you can handle emotionally, you work on next. And not one. But the whole idea of working on one is control and therefore not surrender. And so unlikely you're going to work on anything. But let's say, you know, somebody says that and I come up and say, well, you've got to work on this arrogant jab, let's say. The average person again goes, well, how do I do that? Like, I don't believe I'm arrogant. So I don't know what Jesus is talking about, really. You know, why does he think I'm arrogant? He must have a bad opinion of me.
I've gone down that route before.
Yeah, you've done this. This is why I say it to you. What's wrong with him? He's got a bad opinion of me. So, you know, how can he have such a bad opinion of me? It's funny, when I'm with him, he treats me quite nice, but when I'm away from him, I feel he must have a bad opinion of me to say that about me.
Has he got it in for me or something?
Yeah, has he got it in for me, yeah. What's wrong with him? What is... You know, a lot of people would have emailed me about the men-women thing, you know, and they say, he favours women over men and all that stuff. Not true. None of that is true. I just feel the thing that's wrapping up most of your stuff and just say that's what you need to do with next. Like, as any spirit who would be helping you in the spirit world would do, by the way. Anyway, so there you are, you get presented with an idea or concept, but internally you're going, I'm not arrogant. There's something wrong with him. Already.
That's the issue of the arrogance right there, isn't it?
Correct.
Like I catch that.
Well,
but then I don't actually feel the arrogance.
So you're not catching it.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yes.
So you're going, I think he's not good at it. So when you're in that state, what's happening now? What's happening now is there's no hope of you ever having a prayer about that problem with God.
Yes.
No hope. Because you already can't, you're already in the place where you don't want to see the truth. So there's no hope now. There's no hope to get through it emotionally. There's no hope to change on the issue while you have that spirit, you know, while you have that desire. No hope of any change. And this is why most people don't change.
Yeah. It's
because they ask for help, they're given some, and particularly on earth they don't change, I mean. And then they go, well, that can't be true.
Yeah.
So what's my course of action after that? If I believe it's not true, just after I've asked for help, And I believe even just asking for help is a good thing, isn't it? Like asking for someone to tell you, or asking for some assistance, or even just having a straight conversation with somebody about something is a good thing. But whenever in this say, "Oh, I don't believe that," from that point, there's going to be no change on that subject until that attitude changes.
You're just going to get battered by the law of compensation. Correct. At that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. So, An example for an arrogant person: people who get sick or tired of spending time with you. People feel like they feel quite bad when they're in your company, because you're always trying to make them feel bad that you're superior, and so they feel quite bad, and so they want to avoid your company generally. And it's only the people who are quite extreme, needing your approval, who are going to want your company, right? So arrogant people usually end up surrounded by a whole heap of yes people, right? None of you are yes people. I'm not surrounded by yes people. Hardly any of you do what I suggest ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah. But an arrogant person is surrounded by people who are yes people, and in fact they get rid of all of the no people. Right.
They get rid of them in terms of they just get them out of their life. Yep. Right. That's one of the results. Another result is that any woman worth her salt won't want to spend time with you. So that means you end up with no good relationship, no good friendships. Friendships are always power friendships, like they give you power or you give them power, but there's no real friendship based on knowledge. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's you could say the penalties of not. So these are all compensation penalties. And sooner or later the penalties will go, oh, why is my life like this? And then we might start the actual personal process of wanting to know why.
Yeah, there's more sincerity then to just be...
Correct.
Deal with the state right now.
Yeah. So you've heard Divine Truth, Nikki, in the sense of listen to it, and you've thought, oh, this is a good thing, I can be a lot happier if I do this. But you've not been prepared to actually go through that process, right? So in the time I've known you, you've thought you're in the process when you're not in the process. And the very teacher of the process you disagree with. And this happens frequently to me, right? Honestly, how many seminars are there where somebody wants to argue with me who's been listening for years, comes to a seminar and say, I've been listening to you for years, and I'm going, you haven't been listening to me at all, because as soon as I start to say what you're personally doing, you want to argue, that means you're not listening anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That means you want to fight. And like I keep saying to the last tour we had, you want to fight with me, go somewhere else. I'm not interested, And if the very person that you say you have respect for is telling you that you're not doing the very thing he's teaching, and you say, no, I am, that's like going to a uni and to a professor there, and he's telling you, a whole heap of things, and you're saying, but I already know all that, when you don't. Do you know what I mean? How can anybody help you beyond that point? They can't. God can't, the person can't. Make sense? So how do you get beyond that? The only way is to start to work through you work through the feelings, not by working through them, but by having them.
By actually having the feeling.
Yeah, you've got to have your arrogance.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to gain emotional awareness of your own arrogance.
Not only that, you've got to have
Initially, you're going to have that.
Yeah.
And you have it obviously to yourself. You don't act it out, right?
Well, you will. When you start having it for yourself, when you act it out, you'll see it straight away.
You'll pick up the microphone
and you'll be so
on
embarrassed,
Saturday and you'll go, oh my gosh, I'm in this arrogant thing right now. I'm just telling Jesus I already know what he's saying all the time.
Yeah.
And you'll feel that.
Yeah, and you'll also feel like, whoa, like this sort of, when you become aware of sin, it's really interesting, the feeling, because the feeling is sort of guilt as well. There's a mixture of guilt, and it's a good guilt, because you start realising, and it's a feeling you need to go through. Well, I do that. Oh, I do that. Look at me doing that. Like you see yourself doing it. You don't need anybody to tell you you're doing it, because you can feel yourself doing it.
You feel the guilt and the shame of doing that thing.
Yeah. And you can feel how much of a sin it is. And then if you allow yourself to feel that enough,
Yeah.
you'll get under it.
Okay.
And what does the arrogance cover?
Yeah.
See, what the arrogance helps me a lot with avoidance of surrender to my feelings. It makes me seem like I've got everything under control when I have not.
Yeah.
It makes it seem like I'm a good guy when maybe I aren't. Right? It gives me a perception of myself, and also an illusory perception to other people of myself
Yeah.
that I like. Because I want people to look after me, whatever. And you start feeling all of those things. You follow? But if you don't feel your arrogance, you won't feel all the other things.
Yeah.
Because the arrogance is like a layer on top of it all.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many of you who come to me and say, we start talking about problems, as we do, because that's what friends do. And eventually, and you start hearing what I'm saying to you, and quite often it's quite direct. And you go, man, he must have a bad opinion of me, that guy. I don't know if I can spend any more time in his company when he's got such a bad opinion of me. And to be frank with you, I don't have bad opinions of you. I have a bad opinion of your sin, just like God does. But I don't have a bad opinion of you. You're the pinnacle of God's creation, even covered in sin.
Well, that's the tricky part. It's like when, I think we can all say it when we're around you, feel the love from you,
yeah,
and that you care.
And then when you go away,
and then when I go away,
what I said,
yeah, and then I re-listen.
That happens when you're away.
When I re-listen to it,
yeah.
I'm like, he's got it in for me, man. Like,
yeah.
Or I'm feeling like, no, that can't be right, But
he's not at one with God yet, so. That's like the most common. Like we get.
I've not had that
we
one.
We get 100 emails a week saying I'm not at one with God yet, so they don't need to listen to what I've taught.
Oh.
Easy though. And I'm going, well, that's interesting, but at some point you're going to have to recognise who is your teacher and what they actually do know. Yeah. You don't at the moment know what I know. I don't mean that you don't know the things I know. What I'm saying is you don't know the state I'm in. You can't even see the state I'm in.
The scope of what
you can't even see it.
As in the way, like the level you're operating at.
Yep.
Well, I can't kind of.
No, you can't.
No, okay.
Nobody. I'm sorry, Nicky, you can't. If you could, you wouldn't be so argumentative about when I point out a problem.
Right. So actually seeing you as who you are, in the state you're in, the condition you're in, and having the respect there emotionally for that state, is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is, let's say you think about the spirit world for a moment. Let's say a person who's in the hells asks for some help from a celestial spirit. What does the celestial spirit do in order to give that help?
They go to them.
They go to them. In the going to them, what happens?
They turn the brightness down.
To the same level
as the person.
Okay. So the only way the person can now tell they're different is by the feelings they feel from them.
Yeah.
And if the person isn't feeling, how can they feel what the celestial spirit feels? They can't, can they?
No.
No.
But
so you can't feel what I feel. You have no capacity to feel what I feel at this stage.
So, what about the feelings of love and care, though?
Yep.
Or do you mean just your feelings about everything?
About everything.
Okay.
My feelings about everything. You don't know what they are. You can feel at times my feelings for you when I'm there.
Yes.
With you.
Yeah, but can we even
But
say that?
as soon as I'm out of your vicinity, what do you feel? He's got it in for me.
Yeah.
Which that tends to indicate we weren't surrendered to the feelings.
Correct.
In your company.
In the first place, right.
Yeah, most people don't. And it's a normal thing. I'm not saying it's unusual. I'm not saying you're going to be able to change it either. It's the way it is for a person who's not yet feeling their own feelings.
Right.
It's only the people who are feeling their own feelings that can start to feel mine. Makes sense? So you don't know what I feel. And so this is why many of you look at me intently examining what I do and how I look and what I say, and you're trying to work it all out still because you can't feel. See, if you could feel, you wouldn't need to work out anything.
You just know that you're Jesus, basically.
You'd also know that I'm a kind fellow who loves you, and you'd also know that I'm never going to say something that's not in your interest to hear. You would know all that about me. You wouldn't, and you'd know that whether you walked away and you were on the other side of the world or you're here with me. You would know that. You'd feel it from me, actually. Right, but most of you don't.
I've had moments where I do have that towards
Only when
you.
you're with me.
Only when I'm with you, when I feel love to you, for you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that sometimes, and I cry.
Yeah, but are they your feelings?
A little bit, I'd say, maybe.
Well,
I know my guide, I know his feelings.
So what does he feel about me?
Man, it makes me cry if I feel his feelings.
Yeah, so they're his feelings, right? He's trying to show you, why don't you feel this way, you know?
Yeah, it's just very intense feelings of gratitude for you and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's full on.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Just other feelings you don't want to feel. Because you see, if you feel those, people will say to you things like, oh, but you just have this soft spot for Jesus now, and now whatever he tells you to do, you'll do. That's not how it is, but that's what people have accused you of doing, and that's what you feel bad about doing. You want control of your own life. You want the illusion that you have control of your own life. And so people don't like other people saying that about them, you know. Many of you are not even open enough to say you come here on a Saturday to anybody in your life, right? And the reason why you're not is because you don't want to hear what they've got to say about you coming here.
But Jamie, I share that with people.
I know you do.
And I feel the judgment, like even at the school, you know, I'm talking to someone and I'm like, my friend, I feel is Jesus, and straight away, what's wrong with you, man? That's a rejection. Right. You've lost it.
And can you see how that confronts the arrogance? Like the projections of others confront the feelings within you, and you don't want to feel those feelings, and so then you back off. And these are normal. And what I'm saying, these are all part of things you need to surrender to.
Yeah.
In the first century, I said to people, if you want to have a relationship with God, you're going to have the relationship with the person He sent forth, right?
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
But then I leave it and I feel bad because I'm like, man, like Jay's my friend, and I've just not stuck up for him.
Well, yeah. But why? See, if you surrender, you'll find out why. And a lot of us have a lot of emotions about how we look and how we're perceived in the environment and how others perceive us and what they think about us, and we worry about all those things so much. And these are all errors that we need to leave us, but because we're not surrendered to the emotions, they never do. There were many people, like I said to Peter before I died, what he was going to do. Right? There's a record of that in the Bible, that he was going to deny me 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
That he was one of the people who followed us around followed me around, didn't like following Mary at all, but followed me around for nearly 3 years of his life, like where he literally was in every place I was almost for 3 years, right? And yet, obviously in that time, there's a lot of people who saw him with me, right, in that time. And yet when he was in the position where he had to own up to it, because of the threat of his life,
he backed out of it.
That's because of not wanting to surrender to feelings.
Yeah, I don't even know that verse, but I had that come to me twice this week, just thoughts about that.
Yeah.
About, it just was like, I thought Peter just, and I've not even read that part of the Bible. It just came to me, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and it came when I speak with this other teacher at the school, and I felt what you're doing.
He's trying to help you with the feeling. You see, it's the same feeling he had.
Right.
You don't understand how strong those feelings can get, you know. Many of you don't understand that put in the situation where I might die versus you speaking up and you might die, you'll let me die.
Man, that's sad.
Well, not really. I don't think it's sad, but because I've felt my emotions about it. But I know it will happen if in the circumstance. So I don't know what's going to happen to me. Even yet, on earth this time, I don't know what's going to happen to me because I know I'm surrounded by people who have no courage when it comes to truth. right? And almost everybody who hears truth worldwide has very little courage yet, because of what they don't want to surrender to.
So part of it is part of like us not being like that. So for me, it's the arrogance. I'm not willing to feel the feelings under the arrogance.
I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm just saying it's the thing that stops you from dealing with everything else. So it's your next thing.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's not going to be the only thing. There's going to be a long list of things, but it's your next thing, and you need to learn how to feel it so you can feel it in you. See, at the moment you don't think you have it, which is denial of it. It's denial of the feeling. And while you're denying the feeling, you will not have it. And if you don't have it, you will never get underneath it. Ever. You won't ever feel what's there underneath.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to have it and to recognise it and feel it. You see, what I love about God's way is this. You will become so sensitive that every single feeling a human can have, you will be able to describe.
In the moment.
Through your feelings, you'll be able to describe every single feeling a person can have. Right? Because you've actually felt what they feel like. And this is a good thing. So you know how some people feel despair. You will know what that feels like. When people feel ecstatic, you will know what that feels like too. You know, any emotion that you could ever experience, you will know what they feel like. Right? And this is a good thing.
And is that because you've already felt them yourself? Correct. So you understand, you've got the compassion.
Not only that, you've got this internal recognition of this is what that feeling feels like. Right? So when I speak to many of you, you think I'm angry when I'm not, because you don't know the difference between anger and firm.
Yeah.
You've got no idea the difference. You think when somebody gets firm with you, they're angry with you. And that is because a lot of times in the past...
From childhood,
that's exactly what happens, right? And you think if somebody's firm with you, then they're angry with you. And so many of you think that if somebody even just criticises you about one thing, they're angry with you, right? You even think that. And I'm going, well, that's not true. You know, you're in the state where you are only able to resonate with the feelings you currently have.
Yep.
So this is what I'm talking about, your design, right? If you think of the soul like a big antenna. I don't know if most of you know much about electronics, right? There's only a few in the room probably do. But the way an antenna works is that, an antenna is made at a certain height in order to catch a certain frequency that is best caught at its most amplitude at that height, right? The antenna has got to be a multiple of a frequency of the wave in order for it to catch the wave. So our sound gear here is working that way. These antennas here are tuned into a certain frequency. At the moment, they're tuned in from 480, I think they have megahertz, to 600 megahertz, which is 600 million cycles a second. And this little transmitter that I've got on my backpack is tuned into the same, but this one's a 1/8 wave, and that one's one full wave. And so, because it's a multiple of each other, it can catch the transmission. Then it goes through a system and gets demodulated, and it comes out where the sound is on top of that, and it gets transmitted through the speakers, and that's how you hear it. So this is the thing that's happening. That's good, and you could say there's resonance between the antenna and what's happening. The frequency that's coming at it, you understand? It's the same with your emotions. You are resonant with emotions that you do connect with. So let's say you have an arrogance.
You can then feel that same resonance in another.
Then what will appeal to you are the other people who are arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll appeal to you.
Yeah.
Right, because you're in resonance with each other. So you're in resonance with each other's sin. So it appeals to you. It sort of makes you feel like, I feel good around this person. This is cool. This person likes me. I like them. It's wonderful. Wherein you could call it codependence, but it's a resonance. And it's because arrogance has a certain flavour of a feeling. that every person on the planet can feel.
Yeah.
And but most people don't know they're feeling it. They just feel, some people feel a terrible feeling around it, so they're not in resonance with it at all. Some people feel a neutral feeling around it, which is more like how I feel, right? And then some people feel like a great affinity to it, which is how you feel. You follow? So when somebody comes along who is arrogant, you love them. I've seen you do it, like with people. You love them. You work with them. You want to do things for them. You're even prepared to even sacrifice a bit of your life for them. Actually.
Yeah. I felt that actually.
Yeah. But someone comes along who's humble, right? Now there's no resonance between those two feelings. So you can't understand them. You know, what's he thinking? What's he talking about? I don't understand what's going on. I feel confused around him all the time.
Isn't literally humility the total opposite of arrogance?
Well, not really. There's a lot involved in humility, and arrogance is just one
It's
quality.
just one thing. Yeah. Okay.
But generally, a humble person is not going to try to put you down, make you feel inferior or superior. See, arrogance demands that somebody treats you as you're the superior. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So arrogance requires, in order for it to be resonant, requires that somebody comes along and either treats you like you're a great guy, actually. Now, there's only two people that are going to treat an arrogant person like they're a great guy.
Either an arrogant person or someone who actually is worried about the arrogant person and wants them to think good of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
The other two you'll resonate with. Everybody else you won't resonate with. You won't even be attracted to spend any time with them. You won't want to spend any time with them. You won't see them as potential friends. You won't see them as brothers and sisters even. You just won't. You feel, well, we're in this arrogant party together, and unless you agree we're great, or you're within me with the party we're all great, you're not in agreement with me. So I'm not going to resonate with that. Yeah. Now, we are like these antennas. Our soul have been designed as an antenna for all emotion, and a transmitter and a receiver of all emotion. Sin determines the flavour.
Right.
Or love determines the flavour. Right? So both ends of the spectrum. You could say sin is the evil end of the spectrum, isn't it? So if you look at the flavour of emotion, right, you could say on one end of the scale is your sin, which is actually the creation of evil.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the scale is God's definition of love, which is what could be defined as good. And then there's human love, which is a subset of that.
Yep.
You follow me? Somewhere on the scale. Perfected human love is without sin. So in this part here, you've got sin. From this part to... And this goes on forever now, doesn't it? This is an infinite scale if you think of God's love as infinite, right? But here you can see there's a transitional point where you become perfected in human love, right? But not in God's. And then there's where you become perfected in God's love, but not knowing the extent of it. And that just continues forever then to infinity, right? And when you're in this state here, certain things are going to resonate with you and you're going to agree with them. But when you get to this state here, you will no longer agree with them. Right? You'll feel, in fact, that feels terrible.
Yeah.
You understand?
That's once you've awakened to the sin.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not just awakened to it, but actually felt through it and be forgiven for it. Yes.
Okay, right.
When you've done the entire process of the sin, you get to the point where the sin, that sin that caused you to be there is gone.
Yeah.
So now when you're here and you look back at that, whenever you go back there, you'll feel, wow, that was a really dark place I was in.
Yeah.
Whoa. And you'll be able to feel the difference, the contrast, right? Interestingly enough, the same applies this way. If I'm here, looking this way, when somebody here comes to me, I feel, I don't resonate with that person. There's something wrong with them. Like, I don't get them. They're saying things to me I don't understand, and I don't grasp, and I don't agree with them. Maybe, it's weird because you sort of feel like you're loved, but at the same time you feel like you're being criticised.
Yeah.
This is how you feel with me, right?
Yeah.
You feel like, on one hand, you feel loved and respected, but on the other hand, you feel like, no, there's a problem here. He's got it in for me? What's wrong going on with him, And so this causes you then to dismiss the person
who's giving you the love and truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand? And this is why you've read in the Paget messages, it's hard to think of heavenly things in hell.
Yep.
This is why. Because when you're there in hell, any contrast to the hell feels like even more hell in a lot of ways. That's why, the way the spirit world's been designed is you will be in the location that matches your condition because that is the most comfortable place for you. And so if you're arrogant, the most comfortable place for you is with other arrogant people or with people who look up to your arrogance. That's the most comfortable place. Any other place is not going to feel comfortable for you and you won't even feel attracted to doing it. Right? The same applies with every injury you have. It develops a level of comfort at that position, and anything that there are certain things that are complementary to it. In other words, it's like if I'm in a superior condition and you think I am superior, then that's great. But if you think I'm equal, I'm thinking you're putting me down.
Yeah.
I'm greater than you, and you're saying we're equal? How dare you think such a thing? You know what I mean? That's how you would feel.
Yeah.
So it's all about the perspective you have is governed by the emotions you have, and unless you surrender to the emotions, it's impossible to change the perspective. You can try to intellectually adjust your perspective, but you're always going to come back to the fact that you feel the way you feel, and that's not changing until you actually go through the feeling of it. Right?
Yep.
And so the only way to go through the feeling of it is to surrender to it. You can't actually go, I'm going to plan to go through the feeling of it. It's like, oh yes, I know I'm arrogant. So
I'm going to do my journaling about it.
I'm going to journal about it, think about it, all that kind of stuff. Ponder, reflect. Well, some of those things are soul things. And some of them are intellectual things. The intellectual ones are not going to help you. Yep. Soul things are like learning how to feel it, teaching yourself how to feel your arrogance, and actually feeling it. That's a soul thing. And then if you do that, then you'll get through it. You'll get down why you want it so much.
Yeah.
Right? Because a person who's arrogant wants it a lot. And the reason why they want it are varied. There's many reasons underneath why they might want it. Makes sense?
Makes sense,
Yeah. But if you can understand that when you're in a certain position or condition, there are certain people and feelings that are very complementary to that condition. And that you can be in the hells and there'll be people complementary to that condition. An example, that's why they have the term birds of a feather flock together. That's why there's the Bible scripture that says bad associations spoil useful habits. There's all of these things that have been said historically, which all do point out to the average person that who I associate with tells me a lot about me. If I can't bear the people who are positive, then I like being negative. Right? If I can't bear the people who are equal, then I like being either superior or inferior.
Yeah.
Right? If I can't bear people who are homosexuals, then I've got some major sexual injuries that I've got to work through, because there's a reason why there's a lack of resonance. 15% around about of all people God designed are homosexual, so that means you're not resonant with God's design in that regard. So there must be a reason, right? Some feelings within. It's the same when I'm racially prejudiced, or I've got I just don't like maths.
You don't like maths?
Yeah.
Mathematics?
Yeah, just a simple thing like that. I'm out of harmony with my design. Look, your soul's been designed to live by maths. So if you don't like it, then there must be something wrong with you.
And does that affinity continue? Let's say you climbed out of the hells finally.
Yep.
And you're in the second sphere or the third sphere, and then do you still have like those issues where you still only want the comfort, or do you get to a place like, let's say, third sphere, where you're just like, I'm just going to be uncomfortable. Okay, no worries.
Well,
Right.
it depends what path you're on there, doesn't it? You can be in the third sphere, but using your intellect to progress, right? Or be in the third sphere and using your emotion, with God. So there's two ways to get to the third sphere, and whoever you'll feel more infinity with is who you'll be with.
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to be with the people who you're drawn to, and the main reason why you're drawn to them is because of the affinity you have with them for whatever reason. Right? Now that will continue, even once you're at one with God, you will have affinity for some, but it will be based on personality.
Yeah, so if you've got matching desires or similar desires, they're the people you're just going to hang around with more, right?
More, yeah. So the people I hung around with more after I became a one with God were the people who had the same desire to teach people about that truth that I had, and that were wanting to help in that experience and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. And so they are the people we spent most of our time, not all, because you like spending time with all variety of people, but the people who you just sort of develop a life where you do your work, you'll be drawn to the ones who want to work in the same areas of fascination that you have.
Yep.
You follow? But when it in the hills, it's the very same. If I love drugs, I'm going to be attracted to all the people who supply drugs and use drugs. And does that make sense?
I want to overcloak people on earth who are taking drugs and all of that.
Yeah, all that. All that will happen as a natural consequence. That's the law of attraction. That's how it works. So what most of us don't realise, though, is the law of attraction is governed not by our thoughts.
By the feelings.
By our soul condition, our feelings, our desires, our passions, our longings. The thoughts are a part of that. They produce thoughts, but it's the feelings and longings and passions and desires that govern what I will do. So this is what I'm saying to all of you, is that when you want to surrender to a feeling, you will find that you won't even recognise the want anymore. You will just be in the feeling.
Mm.
To recognise the want means you're not in the feeling yet. If that makes sense to all of you. When you feel your feelings as you have them, it's like you only recognise them afterwards generally. Like, oh, I had that feeling. Not, I'm about to have that feeling. You follow? And so it's very interesting. It's a very interesting sort of switch that happens in a person. And in the spirit world, the third sphere is where this switch generally happens on the divine love path, where people make this sort of quite strong switch into complete surrender to their feelings. And that's why from the third sphere onwards, the two paths are very divergent from each other. So what happens is that for most people, let's say they're in the sixth sphere and they got to the sixth sphere using, all of what they believe is their intellectual prowess to get to the sixth sphere. Many of them have to go back to the third in order to be in an environment where they can make that surrender-based switch. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a very important switch that's going to happen on all of if you want to follow God's way, it's a very important switch that's going to happen in all of your hearts, in all of your souls. It's a very important change that has to occur. And it cannot not occur. You can't become at one with God without it occurring. It has to happen. It's one of those things that whatever your will is, too bad, it has to happen. And it's and a lot of people avoid it for many years, and therefore they progress even beyond the third sphere without having that switch. But every time they really find God's way, they have to go back to the third sphere in order to experience that switch. Now, in the Paget messages, you'll notice there's quite a number of messages that refer to people going back to the third sphere, and that's the reason why they're back, to have that switch. So there were some that were in the sixth sphere. I think one of them who went back to the third was Sleva. She was in the sixth sphere. She'd been, I think, in the spirit world for about 15,000 years. She was an Egyptian princess. And when she heard the way, and when she she first came to Ned and heard about it, and then what happened is after hearing about it, she came to talk to some other spirits, and Mary and I were a part of that discussion, and she eventually realised that, this is beautiful. She felt it was beautiful. Then she realised she was going to have to make this sort of switch to surrender, and she made this sort of decision quite early in that discussion, where she realised she was going to have to go back to the third sphere and go through the process emotionally that she had avoided the first time she was in the third sphere in order to have that switch. And once that switch occurred, she made progress and became one with God, quite quickly after that. But the switch had to occur. And it's not completed until you're in the eighth sphere, the switch, but it begins in the third, where you start surrendering to pretty much everything you come against. You just don't know what you're going to come against.
The intention.
The intention, though, is set, and the will is set, but also it's not an intellectual will, and it's not an intellectual intention. It's emotionally, I start to just have the feelings as I have them, and just whatever comes up. And when you're in the third sphere, whatever comes up are third sphere things. And then when you're in the fourth sphere, whatever comes up are fourth sphere things, and fifth sphere things, and so forth, until you reach the eighth sphere. You have that experience, but there has to be this change in you. And you can actually feel the people who have made that change, right? And aside from myself, nobody on earth yet has made it. But each of you, some of you are close. Like in this room, there's probably 7 people, pretty close to 7 people who are close, of making that switch, over to that emotional condition. But it's pretty rare as well. And the main reason why it's very rare is because of the level of control most of us want to have over our emotions. That we want to work against the way we've been made. That makes sense. We're so committed to going, but I like the way I do it, rather than the way God designed us to be.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks a lot.
So everyone feels a bit stunned. Why do you feel so stunned? Can I just ask you that? Jen?
If I heard you correctly, I heard you say that in order for you to be yourself, you have to dull yourself down because of our my emotional condition contributes. Did I hear that correctly?
No, I don't. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant was that you will see me as the same as you see yourself. You will see me. It's like a person in the first sphere. If somebody in a more higher condition of love comes to them, they don't see them as a celestial spirit. They see them as another person in the first sphere would be seen. So that's how many of you see me. You see me. You think I've got the same faults you have. You think I've got the same feelings you have. You think that I feel the same way you feel about things, and I don't. But you don't know that because see. Then this is something that we notice a lot when we're travelling. In particular, we notice a lot where people are presuming things about Mary and myself that are nothing to do with Mary or myself. They are to do with how the person feels, not about how we feel.
I feel guilt inside of me, and I feel that I need to apologise to you publicly because I feel. I feel
why?
That.
But this is
I feel that
this is you now acting in an addiction.
Is it an addiction?
Of course, yeah.
Well, then
Well, you feel bad. You need to learn how to feel bad for yourself without having other people to share in your bad feelings.
Okay.
You follow me?
Okay.
So I'm not saying these things to make you feel bad either, by the way. I'm just saying it's a reality. You're not going to be able to see the people who do not have the same feelings you have. You're going to see the people who have the same feelings you have, or have what I would call complementary feelings, like I just said to Nikki. So, the example I gave to Nikki was, if he's in a state of arrogance, he needs two different type of people to feel good. He knows a group of arrogant men, preferably, not women, because women are like, "Rrr." If a woman's arrogant, you don't really feel that attracted to them, right? So it has to be men, and it has to be arrogant men, or it has to be anybody else who feels they're lesser than me and feels like they aspire to be me, right? They're the people I feel attracted to. So that's for arrogance. With guilt, which is another thing you like doing, Jen, right? Well, and which is, by the way, a sin too, like in the sense of like it's a manufactured guilt. It's not a real feeling. So why do you like doing that? Oh, because you think it's going to calm people down and make people feel better about you, right? I already feel good about you. I already love you. I've loved you from the day I met you, right? You know that, right? So how you treat me has no bearing on how I feel about you. But I'm not saying how you treat me is very good. I'm just saying it has no bearing on how I feel about you, right? Many of you don't know that about me. You think that it does have a bearing, but it doesn't, right? Because I love you. Like, that's why I want to teach you the truths that are going to help your life, right? And I'm not invested in your life, like telling you what to do in your life, as you now know. I think at the beginning when you met me, many of you thought I would be, right, invested in telling you what to do. But as you now know, I'm not invested in telling you what to do at all. However, I am very much hopeful that you'll listen to God's truth so you can be happy. My goal is your happiness, right? And not just yours, but everyone I meet. As Mary knows, my goal is that they are, able to become happier through the process of meeting. Yep. So you don't have to say anything in apology to me. I will feel, when you're sincere, I will feel, oh, Jen's dealt with that.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Standing? Do we get with clarity the importance of surrendering to your feelings? Not really. Okay. And if you think about it, that, like you think about all the things I've talked to many of you for maybe 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Many of the times I've talked to you about your emotions, haven't I? Can you see why? Because without surrendering to them and learning how to surrender to them, this sort of switch or transition is not really possible. And you don't understand the limitations of a life lived without having that switch either. It's a really important transition to make, and if you can sort of grasp the difference, it's like being, the way I often think about it for myself, it's like being in a dark room where everything's black and then walking into the bright sunlight. That's how it sort of feels when you make this sort of switch. You start seeing everything before that you didn't want to see or that you couldn't see. Another way I've likened it to you before is like this sort of bright awareness of everything. Remember how I've said to you many times that when I was 30 I was clueless. Like I had a lot of things going on in my life of which I barely knew anything about at all. Like, I didn't understand why I was experiencing them, what was going on, why it was happening. I didn't understand how people felt, how I felt, how even my partner felt, my children felt. I didn't grasp any. I was so shut down to feelings, right? 5 years later, I was almost in a complete different state, where I went through this transition of just accepting my feelings, surrendering to my feelings. And 5 years later, I was so aware now, much more aware of what was going on around me, all the experiences. And there's so much joy that brings you, because you're not confused anymore. Most of us are sort of stumbling around, aren't we, a lot of times? Like, I don't know, sometimes I think of myself before then, it was like walking around, like like with my eyes closed, like trying to make a life, And then once I had that sort of transition, it's like, okay, now I can choose a direction and head in that direction. I know what I'm doing now. I'm aware now of what I'm doing more. It's sort of like it was a huge change in your life when you go through that sort of transition. And it's hard to describe these things unless you actually, like many of you in the future, I feel, will have the experience, and then you'll look back at what I said today and you go, now I know what you mean. Do you know what I mean? That's how it works. It's not, if somebody had told me beforehand that I was going to that was going to happen, I wouldn't have even understood what they were saying to me. I wouldn't have had any understanding at all what they meant. Yeah.
So with not having someone like you teaching you what to do, what did that transition, the start of that transition look like? What was that?
I had to surrender. I had to make the choice to surrender to my feelings.
And what kind of
feelings do they?
No, what kind of what made it that bad? Almost.
It got very bad.
My life got bad. Yeah. Yeah, I was alone pretty much.
And also, Jesus has this lovely quality of being a very principled person. And so...
Even before he's
yes,
actually worked through any emotions?
Even before he really had God's principles back, in his conscious awareness, he was very principled about certain things. And so, this is me answering for you, but I saw you looked quite puzzled.
No, it's good.
So what happened was, in your sharing with me and my knowledge of you, is that his principles, he was so shut down emotionally, but his principles were leading him to make certain changes in his life to the point where he couldn't keep the emotions under control anymore.
Yeah.
And then...
And I just had to vomit.
Things started vomiting, yeah.
And was that like something you kind of set up before you came back? Like you knew, like, these I'm going to go with
now I know,
parents.
yes, but I didn't know that at the time,
Yeah.
no. Like, you know a lot of things afterwards, but not at the time. I didn't understand.
So it was a lot to do with your parents' emotions that you developed, that you had quite strong principles anyway.
No, nothing to do with my parents.
That's a soul quality.
Okay.
That's a soul
and that was
quality.
from because of before. Right?
Yeah, my parents are very unprincipled. Yeah.
But
Who
Jesus,
knows them.
but Jesus, as a young boy, learnt principles. They were very rigid principles in his religion at that time.
Ironically, my parents didn't have those principles that I learnt in the same religious faith that they were in.
And what was going on there? What was?
Well, they just appealed to me.
That's a personality thing as well. Show one of the 14 a principle, and their feelings are principles of what you live by. It just before you sort of feeling yourself, sometimes you pick up the wrong principle.
Yeah. So it was like my life got that bad that it was either die or feel, and and quite a lot of it I did actually physically vomit through as well. By the way, like.
You had a lot of physical symptoms.
I had a lot of physical symptoms, as well as emotions, So that some nights I spent the whole night just vomiting, like physically vomiting, just working through fear, for example. Other times it was just like terrified a lot and working through that. And like when I say working through, I didn't work through it in the sense of like you're thinking. I just felt it all, felt through it all, went through these experiences, like. And because mostly I lived alone, nobody else saw it, and that was good because I didn't have the opportunity to dump it on anybody else. Like I think if there was somebody living with me, I might have, but particularly at the beginning. But because nobody wanted to even live with me at all, I didn't have that opportunity either to sort of share my feelings with somebody.
And was that almost kind of a benefit in a way?
Yeah, it was great. It taught me a lot that I had to own my own feelings, have them, feel them. I could handle them. I could cope with them. I found out I could handle crying for 7 hours a day. There was a period of time where I did that for nearly probably close to 18 months. Yeah. And the only time I would stop was at that time my boys were I would shared custody of Tristan and Caleb. And the only time I stopped was when I had to look after them. That was it. So yeah, it was very good. I learnt I can handle emotion.
Enough to teach about it.
I had to be able to teach about it. You understand? It's you have to go through the experiences before you can teach anything. To be honest, like nobody's going to be able to teach divine truth until they go through it. The celestial spirits have all gone through the same experience that I have, and so that's why they can teach it to others. All of you, at some point, to teach it to others, you don't have to go through it yourself. That's the only way you're going to be able to teach it to others. And it's really good too, because when you make that shift, you don't need anybody advising you about other people not having made the shift. Once you've made it, it's like, the resonance means that straight away, no, they haven't made that shift yet.
It's weird, it's a bit of a different example, but like I really like things like jiu-jitsu, and it's like someone could have like a blue belt or a brown belt, but they suck. And it's like you got a brown belt, but you don't feel like a brown belt. It's a silly example. But
I don't know if I'd agree with jiu-jitsu.
No.
Are you saying you can feel the people who really earned their brown belt?
Yeah. And you're like, okay, you feel like a brown belt.
You've got a facade of a brown belt, but you've got a brown belt.
Yeah, that's right. And that's true. There's you see it often in other things, don't you, where there's people who love tennis and who, but then there's people who make it their life. There's people, and like there's people who love truth, and then there's people who make it their life. Like it is their whole life. To become a one with God, that's what you're going to have to do.
And can I draw together a few things that we've been talking about recently, because few people felt flummoxed by that discussion. If we reflect on what Jesus and I emphasised a lot on our trip was about principles and the importance of principles, and you can see by Jesus' example, his very moral approach to principles led him towards a point of surrender. And then also...
It forced me into it.
Yeah.
Really.
Because he was unwilling to compromise on a principle, it helped him to break down the resistances. He reached a point where resistance was useless. It was going to happen. Yeah. And then also if we think about what we talked about in the second assistance group. Was it the second one? The global terror/rage of emotion.
Second one, I think.
Second one. So remember, Jesus did that beautiful diagram which showed the coming up to this global terror or anger of emotion. And then if you think about some of the things I said earlier about breaking down your global beliefs about emotion, this is the process that you are in when you're feeling really uncomfortable, understanding I want to live by principles, I'm seeking God open-heartedly, but all these things are getting jiggled up inside of me. A lot of that is the things that are supporting your global fear and terror. It's all the false beliefs driving that are getting all shook up, and that's why it feels so uncomfortable. Some of you are in that process. It feels like crap most of the time, but there's this growing strength.
Can I just clarify though?
Well, it doesn't feel like crap all the time.
When you're feeling, it doesn't feel like crap.
Not at all. It's when you're
only
in
when
that.
You're avoiding the feelings.
And that's why you do have these times where you're like, yes, it's all going to be good, and I have faith, and then you're like, oh no, now I'm feeling back in this turmoil. I'm going to have to give up some other false belief that's driving my resistance to global surrender.
Yeah, so I think when you surrender, you don't even feel, oh no. It's sort of just, there's no, once you make the transition, there is just no...
I'm saying when you're approaching the transition.
Yeah, in approaching the transition, there's all sorts of things that happen.
This is what you're breaking down so that you reach this point where there's never an oh no anymore, and you're always in this place like, oh.
There's an oh yes.
Thank goodness. I'm just feeling myself all the time. I feel relaxed now.
There's another emotion.
Yes.
There's another one after you've had it, generally, that's it. When you're in it, it's like, you just have it. And then you go, well, there goes another one. Yeah.
But as you're breaking down, I guess I'm trying to give a little bit more context to some of the other things we've spoken about in isolated to this talk about principles, about global terror and anger, and how it's relating to what Jesus is talking about your design, which is on the other side of that global resistance. That's when you're living in harmony with your design and loving it. And as you're coming up to it, there's work you are doing. It's not surrender yet, but you have to do some work there to reach a point where you just go, oh, I'm vomiting forever now. Or it doesn't feel like vomiting anymore. But it feels like a freedom in your emotional self.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting place to be. And a lot of you are worried about it. That's why you don't want to be there. But it's actually great. So it's sort of like the thing you're worried about, you don't have to worry about so much. So one of the things that helped me a lot was understanding, no, this is how God made me.
Yeah.
This is how God made me to be.
And when you're seeking God's opinion, you start to feel that, oh, no, this is how God made me. And it's not just an idea anymore. It's a knowledge. And also you start to feel like, this is why the principles are so important. I'm building a strength inside of me, which is not just about principle, but about one of the principles is that I feel everything all of the time. And so it's like a breaking down and a building up sometimes in that process before you hit the surrender is what it feels like to me, because I haven't had the experience Jesus had, which was sort of like, and I couldn't.
Well, you've not had the surrender yet.
That's right, but I also haven't. I think everyone to reach the point of surrender has to have the experience that you had, where you say, "No principle shall be broken by me." It's just that
not just that. It's also, I am going to feel what I feel right now.
Yes,
like
that's a principle. Yeah.
There's no other way out of this.
Yes, and it's sort of pointless to do anything else.
Yeah, and also, why would you want to do anything else?
Yeah,
because everything else you do was going to be a sin.
Yeah, and what a waste of time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was about extremes. You know, in our modern life, we're very adept at avoiding extremes.
Well, that's about control, isn't it?
Yeah, we have so much control, we want so much control that we slow the whole process down. What could take us 1 year, 5 months, ends up taking us 15 years because we're addicted to control, and it's easy to, in our society, it's very easy to obtain a sense of control.
Well, there's also other issues about that too. It's sort of like, if I can maybe give another illustration, when you're in a certain position of a certain emotion being within you. So let's say I'm arrogant. This arrogance causes me to have a tolerance level of certain. Let's say this is the depth of bad emotion, and or you could say sad or hard emotions to feel, and this is the scale of good emotion up the top here, right? Or emotions that are a joy to feel, right? When I'm in a state of whatever I'm in, say in the case of arrogance, I have a scale that's only capable of that area. I am going to live my life in that area. There's going to be these boundaries. This is the upper level of my happiness, and this is going to be the lower level of what I will allow. And I'm just going to keep allowing that for the rest of my life, right, while I have that emotion. Does it make sense to it, right?
No.
What's going to happen is the arrogance is going to dictate how good I'm going to feel and how bad I'm going to feel, and I'm going to have a very low tolerance. So this is what I would classify as my tolerance level.
What I'll allow as an experience.
Well, it's really more tolerate, rather than allow, because at this stage I'm not even allowing anything really. I'm just tolerating it.
But it's not that you naturally feel that way, is the point I'm making. It's not that I don't have any bad emotions.
No.
They're happening, but I'm not.
These are the emotions I'll let myself experience.
Yeah.
This is the tolerance to my experience, right? You understand a bit better now? So this is, while I'm arrogant, I will tolerate only these experiences, nothing else. Right? And so can you see how restrictive that is? You're not going to tolerate any better experiences, and you're also not going to understand any worse experiences. You're only going to live in that, you could say, it's like a path, isn't it? A road.
A prison, you could call it.
It's a prison. You're in a prison, right? So while you have the emotion, you are going to tolerate the experience of only a few different experiences. So in other words, you're not going to tolerate anybody treating you as an equal. You understand?
Mm.
When you're arrogant, the only people you can tolerate are the people who think you're better than them, or who just like you, as good as you. They're the only people you tolerate. You're not going to tolerate being around people who think you're equal to them. Right? You just can't bear them. You know, you're going to get angry every time you're with them. You're going to get annoyed by them. You're going to get frustrated with them. You're not going to be able to cooperate with them. This is your life. It's the path you're on, the road you're on. Your tolerance of your experience is governed by the emotion. And once you are free of the emotion, can you see what you can experience becomes greater? Right? You're not bound anymore by the prison of that emotion, which is governing your experience. Right? And these are things you will understand when you go through surrender. Many of you don't grasp these things yet because you've not gone through surrender. When you go through surrender, you start realizing, that emotion caused me to have this little tolerance level of these experiences, and I wouldn't let myself have any more joy than that or any more sorrow than that. I would only allow myself to have that experience. And it's very much flavoured by what you're arrogant about in there. So if you're arrogant about you being a man, then there's going to be a lot of sexual aspects to it, you know, because of that. So we're in this sort of governed. The more you govern the emotion, in other words, not wanting to surrender, the more you are restricting your life experience and your awareness of everything. You're compressing yourself down to what I feel for myself was down to like a speck almost, you know, as to what you could have been. Right? And by allowing the surrender process and going through the emotions and surrendering to them, you're now going through this expansive process that expands your capacity to feel and understand and to absorb and to have experiences that you can enjoy and feel joy about. And you also understand the depths of sorrow as well, because you had to go through that in order to expand. So you understand what it's like to go through. And these are good things, ironically. That's what you come to feel, like that it's good. The problem that many of you face is that you don't feel that prospect is good. Mm. And so you're not going to let it happen. Sort of like, for many of you, it feels to me like, what it feels like is, you know, when a person scratches their nails down a board, you know that sound? That's how it feels to me. You're holding on for dear life, just not wanting to have the experience, even though every new truth you learn is leading you to that experience. And this is why I find some of you quite remarkable in terms of your tolerance levels of you can listen to truth for 15 years and by now many of you are screaming at it, and yet you're still not wanting to go there. But inevitably you will go there. You know, once you begin the process of God's way, you can't really stop it. Inevitably you will go there. It's just how long you scratch on the blackboard for as to how excruciating it's going to be for you. You know? And this is what I was saying to Mary this morning. I just wish that people would just go, I give up the whole fight, you know, like the whole, and just go into this place of surrender, because just have some trust that God's got you in hand, and that, you know, He's designed this so you can handle it. He's designed it so the soul just knows what to do. Have some trust in that, you know. And if you do, then you'll experience the joys of those changes that I'm describing, you know. And you can experience them sooner. Like I think it took me, I went from total denial to this place of like surrendering to my feelings in about 5 months.
Really?
But I had to have a lot, like Mary said, a lot of love and principles.
Yeah, and Jay's like, just trying to remember what you said to me this morning when we were talking about it as well. Like knowing you know, principle is such an important part of who you are. It's like fundamental to who you are. But you said you just reached a point where you were like, why do it any other way? I think you said, why do it, like, why?
Why compromise on anything?
Yeah.
Ever, again.
Why not feel everything?
Like I had to say, did I love my wife? No. What am I doing living with her? I have to leave her right now. And I did. And that caused like huge amounts of problems in my life, which I then had to feel about. Like my family rejected me completely, wouldn't talk to me anymore. My friends wouldn't talk to me anymore. I was disassociated from the organisation I was with, you know, the religious organisation I was with. I went from like living with people to living completely alone, all within a period of a few months. New home, I had to get a new home, new life. And I didn't know anybody because the way I used to live my life was that we used to all associate together with the people who believed the same thing. And none of them would talk to me anymore, so that all had to change. So then I started to feel quite like suicidal. That was just another thing I had to go through. So like, I just used to sleep with a knife next to my bed to remind me that I was either dying or I was doing it. So it was like, and I didn't feel like I had the option of dying because I had 2 sons that I cared enough about by that stage to, you know, to not have to bear the burden of their father suiciding. So it was, I was going to have to feel it. And so that was just a reminder every day, just a reminder, just have to feel things, have to go through things.
And then you did that enough to the point where you realised, oh, this is how you live life, this is how you feel, like if you're not feeling, you're not living.
Yeah, I remember like 5 months later coming, like, so that was every day, like terrible, every day for 5 months. And when I say terrible, it was like, just like, that 8-hour day crying, the rest of the time eating or sleeping, pretty much. And by the end of the 5 months, I remember having a moment where I thought, wow, I'm actually happy right now. That really surprised me, because I thought I was going to be unhappy for the rest of my life, you know. And it really surprised me that I felt happy. And also I had the feeling that I can see colour now, because I never really saw colour. I never really felt colour before. So I remember sort of noticing colours that I, like, you know, it's the difference between just seeing them and then feeling what they felt like, you know. And yeah, that all just changed within 5 months. You can change things pretty fast. It's just how prepared you are, process, you know.
Yeah, sometimes I think when you describe, you sort of like, yeah, and it was great, and I did it. But that's because you love principles so much. It's almost like...
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to let myself off the hook for it.
That's right, and sometimes when you explain things to people, you're like, well, this is a principle. Like, guys, like, as if, like, you know, when Jesus is the principle, he's like, right, on it. You know, and then I go, but this is what you're going through. This is the breaking down.
I don't care what you go through. You got to go through what you go through. It doesn't really matter what you're going to go through. It is a principle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you know, it doesn't take long to make this transition if you really want to make it. The problem is many of us have gotten so used to comfort and control that we really want to slow things down to the point where we're really standing still. You know, we call it...
working through it. Procrastination.
Well, no, you don't call it procrastination. You call it doing what I can handle. Is what I call it. I can only
what
handle
I'm ready for.
So I'll get there when I'm ready. That's not been my experience. With that attitude, you'll never be ready. All the things you need to deal with, you're not ready. So you just need to surrender, because you're not really ready to deal with them, because you've never had those experiences before. You're not ready. But there's no way you're going to get ready either, logically, because there's a whole heap of things you haven't chosen to experience in your past that you're going to have to feel, and you chose to not feel them in the past. So you're not obviously ever going to be ready to feel them, because you haven't. When you actually had the opportunity to feel them, you didn't feel them then. so you're never going to be ready, so you need to give up the idea of being ready and just do it. So what I see, I suppose, is the attitudes have to sort of change a bit. And this is something, when we talk to our spirit friends next, we'll have a break in a minute, we'll talk to them next. This is something they'll talk to you about, this whole sort of transition place that needed to happen for them, you know, like where they had to just decide they're going to face everything and deal with it now, not later. Like for many of you, you've gotten so used to dealing with it later. Like, oh yeah, I know I've got that problem, but I'll just put it off a bit, you know? Not understanding that you can put it off our whole earth life, and also quite a substantial bit of time after that too, you can put it off. Makes sense? Like, it's far better to have the attitude, I'm going to deal with things now and get it over and done with now. It's going to have to be dealt with sooner or later, so why drag it out? There was an illustration given to John when he was on earth, the Apostle John, from the Spirit, and they said, it's like pulling out a, you know, like cactus prickle in your body. Like, is it best to do it quickly or slowly? What many of you are doing is you've got this great big thing stuck right up your arm or something, and you just go slowly, and it's like every nerve ending feels everything while you're doing it, doesn't it? You know, when you do that. But if you just go yank, it's just an intense thing, and then it's done, you know. And it's a very similar approach that I've felt. Once I've made that transition emotionally, which happened when I was around 33, it helped my life greatly, you know, to just go, there's a whole heap of bad, you know, things that I got stuck in me everywhere. I'm just going to have to rip them all out and see what happens. And what I did was I ripped out all the ones I could see. And there were a lot. Like, and as a result, my life changed instantly. Yeah. All right, so what we'll do now